Welcome to Suzanne's studio. I'm Suzanne Barnett, your host, and tonight I am welcoming an eminent young woman. The young woman is Dr. Tracey Wilen-Daugenti. Tracey is, I can't even describe her because she has influenced thousands and thousands of women all over the world. So let's meet her. Tracey, thank you for being here. We had a show about a year or so ago.
Yes, we did.
And now you're even more famous, Tracey. You've written a book. Let's first tell about your book.
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you. And thank you again for having me here, Suzanne. I always appreciate it. But Women Lead is a book that's been compiled by eight to 10 people on our research team. It's launching this month, February, and we're on tour starting in March. And our tour will be visiting many companies and cities around the United States to have a candid conversation about women in leadership. So thank you.
Well, thank you for telling us about the book. And actually, I have been reading your book. I'm a little old right now, but my granddaughter will certainly enjoy it. Tell a bit about your background first before we get into some of the questions.
Oh, sure. So I live in Silicon Valley. I live in Palo Alto. I've had a long history of working for Silicon Valley firms such as Apple, HP, and Cisco Systems. I'm also a visiting scholar at Stanford University, where I look at the impact of technology on society, work, and education. And over the years, I've written many books. This is my 10th. A majority of them were either on women in business and more recently on technology and education and work.
Well, I just am so happy to have you here, and we have some questions that I think the audience are absolutely going to enjoy.
Oh,
and the
thank
first
you.
one is, what are the top 3 findings of your book?
Sure. So we did 2 research studies. We combined them together and we came out with the book. There were many findings, but the key ones that I think are important to remember is that it's time for women to be leaders, and women want women as leaders, and that's a big shift in society. Number 2 is women are future problem solvers and negotiators. And number 3, women have pioneered the new career path that so many of us today really embrace. And that's moving from different points of life into different jobs and into different opportunities. Some people call it a lattice or a maze or a labyrinth.
Okay. Why are we seeing more female leaders in society and the workplace? And can we expect this trend to continue, that there are more women?
Yes, you know, women are 50% of the workforce, so women are here. They're no longer a minority. And increasingly, we're seeing women in prominent roles in many kinds of industries, such as healthcare, education, women starting their own businesses, women leading in the nonprofit sector. And every day you hear about a new statistic about a woman, whether it's an increase in Congress, or more women in school than men, more women in graduate school than men. Women, race car driver, you know, women are breaking barriers every single day, and I believe this will increase and continue.
What about their salaries? Are they still equal to men? I mean, are they going to be equal to men?
So,
salaries?
you know, my philosophy on that, if you're looking in the corporate world, there's enough statistics out there to show the inequity between men and women in salaries. However, if you look at the entrepreneurial sector or the independent sector or the freelance sector, you can really control your own salary and your own income. And my encouragement for women is to think in terms of that. So for example, if you are working in a role, look up on salary.com, payscale.com. Salary is no longer a negotiation. It's a data point. It's you know, if you have the skills and experience, then you should be able to get paid for it. But there's many opportunities that women should look at to increase their finances and not just focus only on salary, but look at all of the opportunities.
This is just an aside question. You were working for these big companies, Apple, Hewlett-Packard, etc. Why did you change your profession?
Well, I, like many women today, and many actually younger generation today, really want to explore a lot of opportunities. When you're working in a firm, we often move to other firms to enhance our skills, make lateral moves, or increase our experiences so that we become more valuable in the market. Currently, you know, the opportunity to expand my research is of great interest to me because people tell me they benefit from it. And so it's another experience that I wanted to have. And I think a lot of people today want to have a full life with many touch points, whether it's be travel, writing books, teaching, working, freelancing, you name it. I mean, the options have increased dramatically.
So you're obviously at the right age at the right time, right?
Well, I don't know.
Yes, of course.
We never know what the right age is and the right time.
But you do so much. You do so much traveling and so forth. How did you ever have time to write 10 books, Tracey?
Well, it takes time. I do interview a lot of people. That certainly helps. For this particular book, this was a team book, and I have to say it's one of our best books. That, you know, I see the value of crowdsourcing, I see the value of teamwork, I see the value of collected skills of expertise coming together, because this product has been so robust compared to some of the books that I've either done alone or with just a co-author.
So probably you're going to keep doing this?
Oh,
You're
yes.
going to keep writing forever?
Yeah. Well, I would love to be able to continue it. I think it's a very interesting opportunity to develop a platform to really speak to some of the issues that people are concerned about and deliver it in an easy-to-read methodology.
And another question I'd like to ask, so many people, we're especially talking about women, but men too, but it's so difficult to get jobs. And we were talking about the baby boomers. They're just really in bad shape. How do you go about encouraging these women? Because you are, you know, it's a personal thing too. How do you deal with those ladies?
Yes. Well, it's men and women. So, you know, the society has changed. We're living longer. I think a lot of us were not prepared for that. And now we're living to 100, and women live longer than men, at least now they do, and realize that they need to be employed much longer span of life, right? You want to be doing something, you want to keep busy. But the corporate world may not be as kind to all of us, right? So my suggestion to women is you have to start young. You really now have to, and so if you have daughters, teach them to plan, look at their finances, and really take control of their lives, very much like a business plan. You know, what stops do you want to make? What experiences do you want? What makes you happy, but at the same time, what's realistic? For women in their 50s, let's say, one of my best interviews was with a number of women who said, look, sit down and decide, do you have a skill or do you have an expertise? That will help you understand what direction to go. So for example, one woman had a lot of art skills, web skills, technology skills. She set up her environment and her freelance shop around designing and developing technology graphics. Another woman came from the corporate world, a little more like my background. Her expertise is her expertise. She's a seasoned marketing person. So her Encore career is developing a marketing consulting practice for firms in the Silicon Valley. So I think that can help people understand, where do I fit, and then what steps can I take? I think one of the smartest pieces of advice that was given to me by a colleague of mine who's 67, planning her Encore career for her 70s and 80s, is she said, you know, I'm employed today, but I may not be. I may be too old tomorrow. So she's looking at healthcare, gerontology. So she's taking her gerontology certificate to overlay her education, because she says, who's better to take care of the geezers but the geezers?
That is such good advice, Tracey.
Yes,
it
so you
really is. How do you get that across in your, you know, in what you do? How do you do that exactly? I'm asking.
Sure. So one is, you know, the book is very easy to read, and we do put in a lot of graphics so people can see where the data comes from, and we actually put in the back the survey so people can understand the methodology we used. But what it really comes together is when I go out and do speaking tours, because I try to bring in, examples from TV and radio and multimedia to help explain to people how fast life has changed and how they can re-engage or continue to engage in this fast-paced life. But we also do these leadership panels, which I think is very exciting. So we work with companies, bring in their executive women, bring in their employees, and we have candid conversations. What are the next steps? What's going on in a leader's head? What's their advice? Because so many people are really looking for these answers. So that's how we bring it to life.
Oh, that must be a lot better than just sitting at the computer
Yes.
in the high-tech firms, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Oh, it's wonderful. What makes women well qualified for leadership in the 21st century workplace?
And that's a good question, because we did do a quantitative survey of men and women, so that's where they check off the boxes. And what was interesting is that women came up very high on collaboration, networking, transparency, ethics, all of these key skills and experiences that people are looking for today in leaders. Now, men on the other side came up high in risk-taking and confidence, which is also very important in today's complex environment. So the combination of the two is very important. But what was so interesting is that women really excelled, and how many women really scored women higher on many of the leadership skills for 21st century.
Now, how do the men feel about this now that the women have really come into their full bloom? Is this tough for the men, do you think?
Well, actually, we looked at generations, and what we found was Generation X and Generation Y, often called the Millennials, were gender agnostic. So what that means is they've grown up in environments seeing dual working parents. They've had sisters, mothers, grandmothers in the workforce. They've seen them in leadership roles. They see them as parent roles. They don't care. They just want a good leader. And so that's, they don't come in with that gender lens that previous generations had before us. So that's very exciting.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yes.
Because I still think of the old guys, that they were always the alpha person, alpha dog, right? And now, what about their wives and so forth? What differences did you find between male and female leadership styles? It's kind of what we're talking about.
Yes, so men did, and I think it's important for women to take note of that, because risk and confidence are important, not only in the workforce, but also for entrepreneurs. And so as a women CEO said to me, what separated me from men and women was that I took risks. So the person who takes a risk, a calculated risk, is a lot more advantage because they can position themselves and they're going to go for it. Same thing on the entrepreneurial side. We talked to women business owners who said what makes me different from other business owners, male or female, is that I took the risk. I had confidence in myself and I went out there and took a risk. And I think that's something important for all of us to learn, because a lot of women feel that maybe they don't have the confidence to do it. And quite frankly, they're very smart and they can do it. It's just getting that little confidence.
And so how do you go about instilling that?
A lot of women said that they increase in confidence as they increase in education. And it's no wonder that there's more women in college today now enrolling than men, and more women pursuing advanced degrees. In fact, it's shifted quite a bit in medical and in the legal industries. So you can see that women get their confidence from education and experience, and really from each other. And I think that's an important shift.
It seems to me, this is very prejudicial, but it seems that women have better systems than men do. Like men won't, they're non-intimate compared to us women, where we'll just tell our whole story. And so there's much more intimacy with women in terms of really expressing themselves, don't you think?
So this came up in our study that women really have these what we call modern attributes that are very necessary in the 21st century workforce, that people do want to have collaboration. They do want to have people who listen and engage with them. They do want to have strong teams. And in the past, the workforce was a little more hierarchical. It was a little more segregated. And today it's very different. So women really excel in this kind of new environment, which is very exciting.
Your job is fabulous.
Yes,
I mean,
it
you
is.
must. You're not going to ever quit, are you, Tracey?
No, and I just meet all these wonderful women, so it's
Yeah.
fantastic.
What about the men? Are there cute men out there too? Except you've got a fabulous husband, so forget it, right? Ignore that question. Okay. What differences did you find among younger and older generations?
So we did find a few
Yeah.
differences. The youngest generation, Generation Y or Millennials, these people are in their 20s. They have a lot more confidence, they have a lot more drive, and they have expectations of being leaders at a younger age. Now, you could say that about many generations, but that's how it's scored. Generation X is quite interesting because many of them follow the rules of the baby boomers, but they're still waiting for their opportunity to rise in a company. Part of the problem is that baby boomers haven't really left. They don't need to leave if they're functioning and doing well in the company, but most people expected them to exit so that the next generation would move forward. At the same time, you have the younger generation kind of clipping at the heels of Generation X. So Generation X is an interesting generation because they're ready for leadership, they're in management positions, and they have to make a decision, should I stay or should I go, and how do I do that? Baby boomers are, 50 this year and up. It's a very large segment of society. This is the group that really identified with their career, identified with the office, corner office, the 15th floor, the 20th floor, the car, the parking spot. This is the generation that really stayed in the workforce for the long haul. So the perspectives are quite different. What's interesting to note today is all three generations are in the workforce together. That makes for very robust teams. So I think if you're in the workforce and you have multiple generations, you can really see how to map all of this great experience and skills together to have a strong team. My team on the book here spans all of the generations, and it's very exciting.
What are the ages?
We range from Generation Y, Millennials, all the way through Boomers. So we have 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s. I'm not sure if we have six.
Yeah. Okay. How does leadership differ in various industries or sectors?
So we did look at that. In general, every industry, problem solving and complex team building and communication skills were top. So that, that's pretty much across all. But you might find some differences in like healthcare, where the ability to organize people and also interact with diverse populations, or in manufacturing, where organizing teams and having technical proficiency are important skills. So in all cases, communication and complex problem solving always came up as the most needed skills. And I think that's important to remember as a leader.
Is the leader. Yeah.
Yes.
How are women's career paths different today from in the past? We've kind of covered that, but go over it, please.
Well, women have pioneered this whole maze, labyrinth, lattice type of career path that the younger generation is really embracing. It's really not staying in one spot forever anymore. It's sitting back and saying, it's my life. I'm going to live to 100. I'm going to be working for 50 to 70 years. What do I want that life to look like? What kind of jobs, experiences would I like to have? Family, elder care, nonprofit, travel. What do all these pieces look like? And women are very adept at that because over the years they've had to fit in all of these pieces. Well, today people want these pieces because it makes for a much more fulfilling life. So women have really pioneered and led the way, and our children can see, oh, this is how they did it. And it's much more appealing for a younger generation. You'll hear about how people stay in jobs and change more frequently.
I see. Now, here's another off-the-cuff question that came to me. As a woman gets older and she retires and she has nothing left in her life, all her life was about work, and she's very depressed. Do you ever work with that kind of person?
Well, we've had women advise, right, on what it's like to move into an Encore career and how to make networks and how to re-engage and how to get your technical skills up. And there's groups out there. So that's the good news. There are groups that specifically address people re-entering the workforce, Encore careers, and we've talked to people who run these organizations so that women know you can reach out and find opportunities. Education, for example, at the healthcare, for example, there's so many volunteer opportunities that can eventually turn into full-time.
So you are addressing that?
Yes, we do. It's called Encore Careers.
Encore, meaning doing it again.
Doing it again and again.
And again, because I do think that, you know, the older generation of women, they don't want to learn the computer, you know, they're so worried about high-tech stuff. And their lives are so, they were so full,
Yes.
and now they're so empty.
Yes. So many move into the nonprofit sector or in some sort of volunteer role to keep active, get to know people, build up skills, learn technologies integrated into work, and to be able to find the next path.
What do you envision happening in your profession, what you're doing right now, in 10 years from now?
I think I'll have a lot of different stops. You know, I think that's the career. I am living the modern career. 5 years in one location, I may anchor in another company for a little longer, a little less. But for me, it's really following, you know, your internal GPS. We talk about that. Where is it taking you? What do you do well? What do you enjoy? And then what do people appreciate? You know, how can you give back to society in some meaningful way and still make a living at it? So I don't know. I think I'll still be doing something like this and probably take it into a new direction.
I'm sure you will. And speaking of your book, where may we find your book? Because I think your book absolutely, if I can read that book, you know, excuse me, I'm kind of past that, but I found it really very, very, absolutely inspiring, truly. So where can we find your book, Tracey?
Oh, well, thank you. The easiest place is Amazon.com.
Okay. And again, the title?
Women Lead.
Women Lead.
Yes.
Not women led.
No.
No. That's spelled differently. So what we've just talked about, we just have a few minutes left. What could you re-emphasize to our audience?
Well, I'll tell you a surprise that happened to me because I've been researching women for a very long time, and I used to ask women what influence their mothers had. And years ago, women would always point to the male figure as being their career guidance person because it was mostly men in the workforce. Today, when I ask women, and in the 200 interviews, the word mom came up 702 times.
No.
So if you think about it, that's almost 4 times per interview. So women have really embraced their mothers, their grandmothers, their sisters as role models. They embrace other women leaders as role models. And I think that's really important to understand that whether you're a mother or a sister or a female, women are looking at you, and they're looking at you for guidance, and now today they're getting it. And I thought that was the most exciting part.